Please rise for the invocation. Lord of creation, we have so much to be thankful for on this day of commencement. We are grateful for family and friends who supported these students through their years of study and personal growth. We're grateful for the successes and triumphs that each one here has achieved to make it to this point. We're even thankful for the hardships and challenges that have made these students who they are, perhaps even more so than their successes. We ask that you bless our time together. May it be a joyous, beautiful, and memorable occasion for all. Amen.
Hello, and good afternoon. To Mrs. Seibert, Mrs. Doherty, members of the Board of Governors and Board of Trustees, faculty, alumni, parents, friends, and to the class of 2018. Welcome, Huan Ying, bienvenido, yokoso, and salamat datang. My name is Teresa Chen, and I've been honored with the opportunity to give a speech at today's graduation. If you were to ask any given person what graduation means to them, you would find that the answer varies strongly from person to person. To you parents, it is an opportunity to feel both pride because your children are taking a crucial step from child to adulthood, and mild relief because your child is finally moving out so you can stop having to deal with their mood swings and actually have hobbies again. To teachers, it means temporary happiness because for half a year, you're freed from your responsibility to try to give academic credit to the sloppy, half-done work of your burnt-out second semester seniors. To students, it is, simply put, pure joy that they have somehow made it through 4 years of soul-crushingly difficult coursework, tiring after-school activities, and a minefield of social situations that, honestly, makes Mean Girls seem like an understatement. Joking aside, graduation isn't just a day to indulge in slightly narcissistic self-congratulations. It's also a day for us to express how grateful we are to everyone who has made it possible for us to be here. So with the spirit of gratitude in mind, I would like to share with you what I consider to be one of Cranbrook's greatest gifts to its students, using an analogy that is rooted in one of the most memorable one-liners from my academic day. Mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. Now you may be wondering, what does a high school graduation have to do with evolutionary biology? In order to make this metaphor work, I'm going to have to give a brief biology lesson, so please bear with me. Way back in the day, before complex organisms like us existed, there were several different kinds of less complex, less efficient cells. Some of them couldn't power their own cell functions and engulfed other cells to survive. Others could power their own cell functions, but were very small and often eaten by larger cells. One day, a larger cell engulfed a smaller one, but instead of consuming it, they began working in tandem. The larger cell would provide protection, while the smaller one essentially took care of internal affairs. With their new efficiency, they proceeded to create a monopoly on cellular energy that expanded into an efficient, multicellular complex organism that eventually became us. And the only way they could do it was together. Somewhere out there, I know Mr. Connor is cringing at that gross oversimplification. It's okay, he'll live. Like the evolution of the complex organism, it is impossible to realize our full potential as individuals without the help of others. I know I can speak for many of the girls when I say that as much as our successes are our own, they would be impossible without those who have stood behind us the whole way. Our parents, who have, through these 4 years, loved and supported us unconditionally, and most importantly, paid tuition. Our teachers, who have always put their all into our education, despite some truly subpar work on the student side. But most importantly, we owe so much to each other. I could not have made it through these past years without the team group chats questioning coaches' sanity for not canceling practice when it's literally raining, hailing, and snowing at the same time. Michigan weather, am I right? Or the class group chats, which ask the important questions like, is that on the quiz? Or is it even legal for a teacher to schedule a test without putting it on CranNet? So to bring this back around to the biology analogy, just as the mitochondria and the cell work together, we too support each other to become better than we are alone. That is the great thing about Cranbrook. It's not the architecture or the opportunities to meet moderately famous people, or even the fact that I can walk up to someone and tell them I went to Cranbrook, and they'll be like, oh my God, like from Eminem's rap? It is those 3-hour team practices, those late nights you spend with your roommate trying to figure out what in the world a redox reaction is, the awkward pictures you take at homecoming. Yes, I know about those. Those times you've just barely missed detention because your friend told you that, yes, the teachers are taking attendance at the assembly. The time you spent in college counseling, partly for the life advice and partly for the cute dogs. The multitudes of walks with friends in between campuses. Those experiences with the people around us are what have truly shaped us. And it has culminated in the greatest gift that Cranbrook could have given us: character. It is because of each other that we are able to stand up here today. So to my classmates, although we may be parting ways, I know I will see you again, influencing each other in the world in ways that we cannot even begin to imagine. I will see you on TV, as political pundits, as scientists behind the next great medical breakthrough, as journalists, athletes, businesswomen, and hopefully one or two of you will become Hollywood stars, so I can brag to my future friends about how I used to know you in high school. I am so incredibly proud and honored to be able to give this speech to you all. I could not be more excited to see where your successes will lead you, because I know that everything you have already achieved is just the beginning. Thank you.
Director Seibert, Ms. Dougherty, administrators, faculty, governors, families and friends, returning alumni, and especially the Cranbrook Kingswood graduating class of 2018. Good afternoon. Even if you have not had me in one of your classes, some of your parents are probably thinking I look vaguely familiar, probably from seeing me at a sporting event. At the time, they may have thought I was just some deadbeat dad who never signed up to bring snacks to the game. Or it might have been at a performing arts production of some kind. If I have a claim to fame at Cranbrook, it's that I attend a lot of events. Since I am not naive enough to believe that all of you who have been in one of my math classes are there because of your love of studying math, I've really enjoyed the opportunity to see you do the things you are passionate about. As most of you know, I am retiring, so I feel like I'm graduating along with you this year. Like many of you, this brings up mixed emotions, though I don't think I will fully feel the effects until the fall comes around and I won't be going through the usual beginning of school rituals. I'm very honored to be chosen by the faculty to speak on their behalf, but when Ms. Dougherty told me of my selection, my immediate reaction was to refuse. Actually, my exact words, as she will attest, were, "That is not who I am." I realized this was a pretty odd thing to say, so I spent a sleepless night examining the question, who am I? How did I get here? Before I agreed to speak. Though I've always been intimidated by speaking in public, I felt it was important to face this fear head on. After all, if you were in my geometry honors class, you know that it was part of your grade to present to the class at least twice a week. Knowing how difficult that was for most of you, I felt it would have been hypocritical of me to refuse to speak today. So, after I made the decision to go ahead with this speech, naturally, my first thought was, in order to look good from the podium, I needed to get on the Revolve website and order a new outfit. After all, you can return it for free if you don't like it. But since I would be wearing this big black robe, you wouldn't see it anyway. Next, I thought I would probably put off writing this speech until the night before, get a bunch of munchies, brew a pot of coffee, stay up all night. After all, I do my best work under pressure. Sound familiar? Last, and most importantly, what would I say? I thought back to previous graduations that I've attended for inspiration. This is my 49th graduation which I've marched. So I have heard a lot of speeches. There really have only been a couple which I have remembered clearly. One occurred at the Berkshire School when I was teaching there. The speaker was the head of Outward Bound, an organization which offers challenging wilderness trips. His speech was memorable for two reasons. Berkshire's graduation is held on their football field, and he landed his helicopter at the far end of the field and then marched across to the podium. I thought perhaps I could have a drone fly into the church, but visions of hitting the lights above your head, much like may happen when you throw your caps up into the air, made this a pretty unwise choice. But his message was one I've taken to heart. He said, whenever someone was having difficulty on one of his wilderness expeditions, he would always say, find someone who is having more difficulty than you and help them out. I have found this to be very useful advice during difficult times in my life. A question I've been asked a lot lately is, how are you feeling? I've had a lot of trouble answering that till now, when I realized that what I'm feeling is a sense of joy and satisfaction with what I have done so far. A couple of years ago, the Dalai Lama and Archbishop Desmond Tutu got together for a week and spoke about how to attain joy in life. They decided, their discussions were chronicled in the Book of Joy. They decided on 8 pillars, 4 of the mind and 4 of the heart, that are essential to cultivating a joyful life. The pillars of the mind: perspective, humility, humor, acceptance. Pillars of the heart: forgiveness, gratitude, generosity, and compassion. Each pillar is presented as a trait which can be actively practiced throughout life. They reiterate several times that joy cannot be cultivated overnight. Also, joy will never come to those who actively seek it. Tutu warns that, quote, "We cannot pursue joy as an end in and of itself, or we will miss the bus." Today, I'd like to focus on the pillar of compassion. How do we learn compassion? In the Book of Joy, Tutu says, in reference to mothers and childbirth, it seems to be a wonderful metaphor that nothing beautiful in the end comes without a measure of some pain, some frustration, some suffering. This is the nature of things. This is how the universe is made up. When it was said of Nelson Mandela's 27 years spent in prison, "Oh, what a waste," Mandela surprised people by saying, "Oh no, the 27 years helped me to become more magnanimous and willing to listen to the other side, to discover that people I regarded as enemies were also human beings who had fears and expectations." The Dalai Lama agreed with his friend Desmond Tutu. He replies, "A self-centered attitude is the source of the problem. We have to take care of ourselves without selfishly taking care of ourselves. We should have wise selfishness rather than foolish selfishness. Foolish selfishness means that you just think only of yourself, don't care about others, bully others, exploit others. In fact, taking care of others and helping others is the way to discover your own joy and to have a happy life." I think I learned these lessons early on from my mother, who was a survivor of the notorious concentration camp Auschwitz during World War II. My parents would rarely speak about their experience, so I could only imagine the suffering they endured. Later in my life, I heard some of their story for the first time when I took them to speak to my 2 previous schools. My mother told the story of being marched with other women away from the advancing Russian army near the end of the war. They walked through the winter, many without shoes, without being given adequate food. Of the 500 women who began, 50 survived. And yet, despite losing her entire family, when asked if she hated the Germans, her answer was, "No, I don't hate the German people. But Adolf Hitler, him I hate." Our family life was strongly impacted by the terrible events that both my parents endured during their teenage years. As a child, I felt the anguish of my parents deeply. I grew up extremely shy, oversensitive, and at times overwhelmed with anger. When I was 7 or 8, I remember a day when I returned home from school. No one was around. I sat on the steps and started crying because I felt abandoned. When I was 11, the girl I promised to marry passed away from a sudden illness. After being told all through my youth that I would become the pride of the family by being a doctor, I made a lot of bad choices through my college years that made this impossible and led me to wonder, what would I do with my life? When I was at a particularly low point, I remembered a time when I was in elementary school and how much I enjoyed helping a friend of mine, who we would now say was mentally challenged, complete his math homework. Looking back, I'm not surprised that I chose teaching as a profession. I have always been perplexed after helping someone after class that on the way out, many would say, I'm sorry to take up so much of your time. My reply has been, I can't think of a better way to spend my time. As you all know, not all suffering is on the same level that my family experienced. For example, at Cranbrook, you have felt the stress of being in a hyper-competitive environment, especially when it comes to college admissions. Extreme reactions to poor grades, i.e. anything below a solid A, are commonplace. And having way too much to do and too little time to do it puts additional stress on you. When asked how he had been able to maintain joy in the face of suffering, Tutu said, "Well, I've certainly been helped by many people. Being part of a wonderful community has helped me very greatly." A year ago, we were all suffering at the untimely passing of Stefan de Klerk. It was only through your willingness to help one another during that trying time that we were able to support those of us who were overwhelmed and together take steps to move forward again. At Cranbrook, we have all been extremely fortunate to be part of an incredibly supportive community, one that you can depend on well beyond the years you have spent here. So, how do I feel today? Certainly, there's a little sadness knowing that this will be the last time we are all together. But mostly, I feel the joy and satisfaction of having completed 18 exhilarating and challenging years at Cranbrook. When asked, how do you figure out what you should do with your life? My answer used to be, find something you love to do. Then see if you can get somebody else to pay for it. But if you really want to be happy, find a way to help others. We'll all be happier because of your choice. I wish you all a joyful life. Thank you.
This afternoon, I have the honor of introducing today's commencement speaker, Jennifer Sibley Clement, Kingswood class of 1978. Jennifer was born in Connecticut, but shortly thereafter, her family moved to Mexico City, which remains her home today. When Jennifer was growing up, Mexico was still viewed as a third world country, and her parents did not believe that the Mexican school system could provide the level of education necessary to attend an American university. They felt that receiving a high school education in the United States was essential. Jennifer's older brother was a student at Oberlin College when her parents were looking for a boarding school for their daughters, so the Midwest became an important factor in their search. Jennifer was in the 11th grade when she came to Kingswood as a boarder and found the school to be a perfect match. She recalls seeing snow for the first time while in Miss Edberg's Greek mythology class, and how Miss Edberg kindly canceled class that day so that she and her classmates could go outside and revel in it. And she remembers the girls having to change into dresses each day for their nightly sit-down dinners, where proper etiquette was always expected. The beauty of Kingswood affected Jennifer deeply, as did the constant contact with people who were committed to their art. For Jennifer, that commitment was directed to dance. She had always been a serious dancer, so it came as no surprise that Jennifer became a member of Performing Dance, Kingswood's premier dance ensemble. In the 1970s, well before Kingswood School and Cranbrook School merged, co-ed classes were already making their appearances on the campus. Jennifer recalls how she enjoyed taking the bus to Cranbrook for her English class taught by Mr. Schultz. Jennifer had been drawn to writing from an early age and appreciated the high expectations of her instructors. Mr. Schultz, in particular, was an important influence on Jennifer. She found none of her English courses in college as rigorous as his literature class. After Kingswood, Jennifer attended NYU, graduating with a double major in English literature and anthropology, and she later earned an MFA in fiction from the University of Southern Maine. Writing is Jennifer's passion, and it became her life's work. She sees literature as a powerful force that can shed light on injustice. Her novels are motivated by issues that either move her or disturb her, and focus on human rights issues, such as the abduction of young girls in rural Mexico, class discrimination, and the gun culture in contemporary America. Jennifer is the author of 4 novels: Prayers for the Stolen, a true story based on lies, The Poison That Fascinates, and her most recent, Gun Love, as well as several books of poetry. Her acclaimed memoir, Widow Basquiat, about New York City in the early 1980s, and painter Jean-Michel Basquiat, earned NPR Best Book ratings in 7 categories in 2015. In fact, Jennifer has earned numerous national and international awards and recognitions for her work, among them the Sarah Curry Humanitarian Award, a National Endowment for the Arts Fellowship, the United Kingdom's Canongate Prize, a Dante Maddalena Fellowship, a Guggenheim Fellowship, and having her work selected as a New York Times Best Review Editor's Choice and placed on many Best Books of the Year lists. In 2015, she was chosen to be a City of Asylum resident in Pittsburgh for her humanitarian work. Jennifer's books have been translated into 30 languages, and several of them have been adapted for the stage in Mexico, France, Spain, and England. In addition, over 20 years ago, Jennifer and her sister Barbara Sibley, Kingswood class of 1980, co-founded San Miguel Poetry Week, where writers have the opportunity to work on their own poetry, as well as take classes from and attend readings by some of today's most distinguished poets. Jennifer served as president of PEN Mexico from 2009 to 2012 and became the first female president of PEN International in 2015. PEN International is a worldwide association of writers founded in London in 1921 to promote friendship and intellectual cooperation among writers everywhere, emphasize the role of literature in developing understanding, and stand for freedom of expression. The organization acts as a powerful voice on behalf of writers harassed, silenced, imprisoned, and sometimes killed for their own views. During her time as its president, PEN Mexico was instrumental in changing Mexican law to make the killing of a journalist a federal crime. As president of PEN International, Jennifer travels extensively to advocate on behalf of writers worldwide. In September of 2017, the PEN International Women's Manifesto was unanimously passed by the Assembly of Delegates at their 83rd World Congress in the Ukraine. The manifesto states in part, for women to have free speech, the right to read, the right to write, they need to have the right to roam physically, socially, and intellectually. As a leader of PEN International, there is no doubt that Jennifer will continue to leverage the organization's global might to champion freedom of expression wherever needed. Jennifer is here today with her Kingswood classmate and friend, Beverly Brown. Jennifer calls their lifelong friendship the best gift that Kingswood ever gave to her. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Jennifer Sibley Clement.
Thank you, Claudia, so much for that beautiful introduction. Good afternoon, Director Seibert, Head Doughty, esteemed governors, faculty, parents, and graduates. I'm honored to be here and speak to you on this very special day. The last time I was at Kingswood was on my own graduation day in 1978. As I was a boarder, Kingswood was not only my school, it was also my home. I have not returned to visit, although in my memories, I've come back many times. I've dreamt of the halls and grounds, and in 1984, went to an exhibit at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City called the Cranbrook Vision. The art show on Cranbrook was written up in the New York Times. In those pages I read, after the Cranbrook School in 1929, Saarinen designed the Kingswood School for girls beside a lake on the Cranbrook property. Here, Saarinen's stylistic evolution took a step. The buildings of Kingswood are sleeker than those of the Cranbrook School and call to mind the streamlined forms of Art Deco. But this is Saarinen's own Art Deco, as Cranbrook School has been his own Gothic. There is none of the sense of jazzy, nervous energy here that is present in so many buildings of the period. Saarinen's version of Art Deco, like all of his work, was serene, tranquil, and resolved. In that grand museum space, which we can all agree contains some of the world's greatest art, I looked at furniture from my Kingswood bedroom. Exhibited behind a rope and watched over by a security guard stood my desk and chair, painted in the original light green. At that desk, or one just like it, I wrote papers on Greek mythology, Gustave Flaubert, and the Brownings, practiced for my SAT exams, as well as writing poems, and since there was no internet or cellular telephones, it's true, I also wrote love letters to Cranbrook boys. At that desk and chair, I sat and looked out the window, watched the grounds change shape and color over autumn, winter, spring, and summer, and like everyone else, I wondered who I was. However, beyond the unusual beauty of the Kingswood Cranbrook environment, what I have returned to over and over again was that for a time I lived and studied in a community of women. And as I was a boarder, I also had an extraordinary family of sisters. From that time forward, the intelligence and camaraderie of women, which I experienced in close proximity, has been with me and has worked to form a large part of my life and work. This is true for both my literature and activism. As I work in the world defending freedom of expression and the power of telling stories and being a witness, I live with great sorrow, as so many women in the world will never learn to read and write and tell their stories. I am the president of an organization that was founded almost 100 years ago. PEN International was born out of the idea that no matter how different we may be from one another, whether it is the color of our skin, the God we pray to, where we were born, or where we call home, that we have words, language, and literature in common. Our faith in words stands as a tool to inform, to be a doorway to new and unexpected worlds, to challenge tyrannies, and to seek justice. As president of PEN and the first woman elected, and as a daughter of Kingswood, I have placed the importance of women right in the center of the organization. Therefore, one of my missions has been to help women writers and explore how violence against women creates censorship. The immeasurable variety of violence that women face, from sex-selective abortion to stolen girls who are sold and trafficked, to female students at universities who are rated and slut-shamed on social media, one common result is that it silences the voices of women. I cannot turn my back from the facts that according to UN women exist, which are 60% of chronically hungry people are women and girls. Less than 20% of the world's landholders are women. Women make up more than 2/3 of the world's 796 million illiterate people. Every additional year of primary school increases girls' eventual wages by 10 to 20%. It also encourages them to marry later and have fewer children, and leaves them less vulnerable to violence. Data from 68 countries indicates that a woman's education is a key factor in determining a child's survival. The historic lack of freedoms for women and girls has in the past and is also in the present day almost always defended by reference to culture, religion, and tradition. These arguments underscore that few groups have suffered greater violation of human rights in the name of culture than women. Because of this, PEN has created the PEN Women's Manifesto, which stands for nonviolence, safety, education, access, and parity. Even in countries where we think there is parity, there just simply isn't. The novelist and journalist Kamala Shamsi discovered that most every woman who has won the Booker or the Pulitzer Prize, her novel's protagonist had been a man. Almost every woman writer knows that if she writes about women, she will not win awards. Consciously and unconsciously, the female experience is considered less profound. Carolina Criado Perez created the campaign to have a woman who is not the Queen of England on a British banknote. Criado Perez was so vilified, she had to shut down all her social media accounts as she received so much hate mail that even included threats of rape and murder. Thanks to her, this year, for the very first time, we now have Jane Austen's face on a 10-pound note. VIDA, an organization in the United States that tracks how many women's books are reviewed, the path to visibility, prestige, and literary prizes, has discovered grave problems, which include the fact that women writers, if reviewed, are usually reviewed by women, and their work is almost always compared to the work of another woman. The poet Grace Schulman, an expert on Marianne Moore, the American modernist poet, recently told me that Moore, who died in 1972, is always compared to Emily Dickinson, who died in 1886, almost 100 years earlier, instead of her male contemporaries. I was in India early this year, where the government's annual economic survey, released on January 10th, claims that more than 63 million women are missing across India. 63 million women are missing, and more than 21 million are unwanted by their families. The challenge of gender is long-standing, probably going back millennia, wrote the report's author, who is the chief economic advisor to the president, noting that India must confront the social preference for boys. I feel the deepest sorrow at the loss of these girls' voices, stories, their lives. Penn Women's Manifesto speaks to this sorrow and ends with these words: humanity is both wanting and bereft without the full and free expression of women's creativity and knowledge. Kingswood and the intellectual sisterhood I found here allowed me to move in the world with a deep awareness of privilege and responsibility. I've known I was to come here for many months now, and so it's made me imagine the young woman I once was, walking with the woman I am now, the past and present selves meeting here. And I asked the Kingswood student I had been, so full of strength and youth, if she could recognize who I am today. So ask yourselves, who are you standing here? And who will you be when decades from now you suddenly meet the Kingswood graduate you are today? I can tell you one thing for sure: the world needs you more than you know. Girls, young women, daughters of Kingswood, the world needs your creativity, ideas, your confusion, your mistakes, discoveries, and dreams. The world needs your knowledge. Thank you, and congratulations.
Good afternoon. It is customary at this part of the program to recognize alumni who are returning here for the graduation. Will you please stand and remain standing till all names are read? Our distinguished alumna, Jennifer Sibley Clement, class of '78. CEC trustees, Michael Berger, class of 1982. Pamela Applebaum, class of '83. Jameson Williams Feliski, class of 1986. Robert Wilson, class of 1976. Our school governors and our governors emeritus. Alice Shaw Akins, 1951. Eugene Bud Moore, 1953. Lori Frankel, 1979. Philip Hall, 1984. Matthew Trunsky, 1984. Lauren Kerr-Frond, 2001. Kristen Biardi, class of 2002. And from the class of 1938, representing the first ever 80th reunion, June Daisley Lockhart. The class of 1978, Beverly Brown Ruja. From other reunion classes, Sarah Akins Post, 1980, Barbara Sibley, 1980, alumni parents and grandparents of graduating seniors, Mary Shaw Moore, 1957, Osmond Jacobson, 1958, Claudia Hudari, 1979, Evan Moore, 1980, Bill Harvey, 1980, Rob Akins, 1985, Robin Elson Jacobson's, 1985, Stephen Dreiker, 1986. May I ask at this time for any alumni who are brothers and sisters of graduates who are here today. May I ask all of our alumni siblings to please stand. Still standing, our alumni, faculty, and staff, Darrell Taylor, 1970, Linda Mastone, 1977, Susan Akins Post, 1978, David Cohen, 1990, Jacob Hazard, 1992, Susan Strickland Muskovitz, 1997, Carolyn Moss, 2003, Hannah Robinson, 2005. Our honorary alumni, Deborah Rutson, Claudia Schutte, Charles Shaw, David Watson, Arla Seibert. At this time, I would like to ask all alumni whose name has not been called to also join those who are standing. Welcome back. And finally, as it is our custom as well, we would like to recognize faculty with significant tenure who are retiring this year. Will you please stand and be recognized as I call your name? Sandy Hertz, Jeffrey Miller, Claudia Schutte, David Watson, and Seal Yeager. Congratulations for your years of service.
The faculty has discharged its duties to the Director of Schools. We have determined that all of the members of the class of 2018 have met the requirements for graduation. On behalf of the faculty, I recommend to you, Mrs. Seibert, the class of 2018 for the awarding of diplomas.
Veronica Lee Alborn. Savannah Vickis Aluwalia, cum laude. Nurul Miza Hanani Fahad Ridswan. Juliana Dominique Akins. Sakshi Anand. Mara Lee Anderson. Liliana Arita Moody, cum laude. Clarissa May Tahero Babala, cum laude. Lauren Elise Baker. Leah Nina Baker. Bridget Elizabeth Ballard. Elizabeth Jane Balsam. Jordan Elizabeth Barber. Leah Riley Benson. Samantha Janet Berger. Gabrielle Barbara Burrell. Simone Patrice Butler. Kate Yua So. Skylar Colette Carter. Carmen Eve Chen. Teresa Shannon Chen, cum laude. Samantha Kate Chin. Ji Mon Chenny Cho. Evania Penelope Caprata. Sophie Hannah Dreiker. Megan Catherine Foley. Catherine Grace Ford. Isla Bell Frazier. Annabelle Rose Geisbuehler, cum laude. Asumi Marie Gabot, cum laude. Alexandra Sarah Grant. Amanda Marie Greening. Felicia Marie Hall. Catherine Marie Harvey. Julia Megan Heppard. Yanice Curleen Hill. Georgia Parker Hennant. Nicole Christine Hua. Elizabeth Xuen Huang. Amna Maliha Jabbar. Isabella Serena Jacobson. Kelvia Giaupi, cum laude. Isabel Victoria Kulinich. Sejong N. Kong, cum laude. Alina Joan Kremp, cum laude. Delaney Bell Langdon. Paige Nicole Lawand. Yanni Lee, cum laude. Connie Lin. Emily Chuen Hui Lu, cum laude. Linda Liu. Angie Lua. Allison Jane Mackey. Miriam Bint Masoth. Sydney Olivia Mouchot. Georgia Sky Myas, cum laude. Sophia Valentine Milia. Sierra Carolyn Moore. Jennifer Marie Newton. Mai Na Puang Nui. Claire Marie Norick. Courtney Hannah Paulus. Amy Nadapan Panjadi. Sydney Ali Pierce. Emily Grace Prokop. Bashak Russia in absentia. Kaylee Rose Roberts. Isabel Ray Skane. Abby Leah Seifman. Natalie Karen Seiler. Dara Nipurn Shaw. Natalie Ann Simmons. Amelia Marie Smith, cum laude. Olivia Helen Stevens. Olivia Violet Sui, in absentia. Mung Yen Soon. Ya Tando. Yasmin Tenori. Katerina Michelle Thanopoulos. Ling To Tran. Lily Caroline Trunsky. Tiffany Kai Trung. Rebecca Rachel Tyner. Natasha Vasan, cum laude. Olivia Esperanza Hill Vasquez. Miranda Chin Yung Wong, cum laude. Courtney Jane Weaver. Catherine Brittany Way, cum laude. Angelina Helen Wyatter, cum laude. Lily Ann Yarima. Chu Chen Yen, cum laude. Teuta Uldez Vanelli. Catherine Lin Zheng. Zutia Christina Zhao.
We rise for the singing of America. We invite the members of the board, faculty, and alumni to join the graduates in the singing of the school song.
Let us pray. God of heaven and earth, we send these young people out from Cranbrook, Kingswood, and ask for your blessing. As they aim high and go forth to serve, help them not to neglect those who are often named as lowly, the poor, the marginalized, and those who are suffering. Give us all discerning eyes and ears to help others, especially those whom we might normally neglect and fail to notice. Give each student safety, direction, and courage. Help them to use everything they've learned and become over their years here to the very best of their abilities. Bless parents and families as well. Give them peace in this time of transition, and graciously provide students and parents with divine wisdom to navigate the future that awaits. Finally, we ask for a restful and rejuvenating summer for all students, parents, staff, and faculty. Empower us all to be a blessing to others in everything that we do. Amen.